Well, we start the hour in South Sudan, where President Salva Kiir has rejected an African Union proposal to send peacekeepers into the country. Speaking to CCTV, Kiir said his government must be consulted before any action is taken. The AU's proposal is one of the outcomes of the Kigali summit. Earlier this month, hundreds of people were killed in clashes in the South Sudanese capital, Juba. Now, that violence has threatened the peace deal President Kiir signed with his rival, Vice President Riek Machar. The AU deployment is meant to be similar to the special force the regional bloc sent in to take on rebels in the DRC. There are already 12,000 UN peacekeepers stationed in South Sudan. It's not clear how the AU will respond to Kiir's rejection. Well, let's get you more now out of South Sudan. CCTV's Robert Nagila joins us live from Juba. Robert, we know, of course, that the violence has subsided there in South Sudan, but it's up to the government and citizens now to pick up the pieces. Just tell us about how people are dealing with the aftermath of those recent clashes.
Absolutely. Well, one of the main challenges, of course, was security, especially during the fighting and in the initial periods after the fighting. Security has been restored in the city. It's firmly under the forces of President Salva Kiir as we speak. Now, apart from that, some of the main challenges they are still facing at this particular moment have to do with food shortages in the capital, Juba, and underlying areas as well, primarily because some of the Juba is mainly supplied from Uganda. You've got trucks coming from the whole region, bringing in supplies to the capital and other states as well. Now, because of the violence that was witnessed about 2 weeks ago, that was not possible. Most truck drivers refused to drive in.
Unfortunately, it seems we have lost Robert Nagila there in Juba. We do apologize for the quality of that line. He did mention that Uganda is among those countries that have been affected by the violence in South Sudan. And it seems, though, now that Uganda will not join the AU force that is intended to intervene in South Sudan. The country has cited a deal signed last year as their reason for that.
In the other agreement of 2015, Uganda, alongside the US, UK, Norway, and EU, is a guarantor. Now, once you are a guarantor to an agreement, you can't become the enforcer. You only guarantee. Unless that position is reviewed, then perhaps Uganda could be part of the IGAD force or even international force.
Well, there has been some reaction on social media to the AU's proposal to bring in troops to South Sudan. CCTV's Catherine Omwando takes us through some of those responses.
Some users are skeptical, while others have praised the suggestion. Current AU Commission chairperson has welcomed what she says is a bold decision. This user is pessimistic, while another is unconvinced. On CCTV Africa's Facebook page, more mixed reactions. Danny Sunday says he doesn't want AU troops, while Maxwell Sarr has thanked the African Union. Catherine Omwando, CCTV.
Well, meanwhile, the UN has been keeping a close eye on the crisis in South Sudan. Ban Ki-moon has been pushing for an arms embargo and targeted sanctions. The Security Council is also under pressure to extend the peacekeeping mandate for UNMISS. Our UN correspondent Lillington has more.
The UN Security Council is following developments closely in South Sudan and weighing the possibility of an arms embargo as well as targeted sanctions. Now, these options remain on the table given the uncertainty right now and given little indication that a peaceful resolution is in sight. We've heard repeatedly from the UN Secretary General since the renewed fighting broke out in South Sudan. Now, Ban Ki-moon is urging the Security Council to impose the arms embargo and additional sanctions. He's also pressing rival leaders of South Sudan to pursue a peaceful course in this conflict, saying that both Salva Kiir and Riek Machar are letting down the international community and regional leaders who have supported their peace efforts so far. Now, the UN chief Ban Ki-moon was at the IGAD summit over the weekend on the sidelines of the African Union summit, where most regional leaders backed the UN chief's calls for the arms embargo, for the sanctions and for a stronger UN peacekeeping mission on the ground. Uganda's president, however, opposed the embargo. but that decision ultimately is up to the Security Council. We know that here at the United Nations, there is strong support for tough measures among some Security Council members, including its permanent members, Britain, the United States, and France. Russia says it will consider it. But any additional troop deployments, whether by the United Nations or the African Union, would likely not go over very well with the South Sudanese government. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir has rejected such a possibility, saying that there are already 12,000 foreign troops deployed in South Sudan. But given all the uncertainty, the Security Council is considering whether to extend and even modify its peacekeeping mission in South Sudan for another year. Now, that mandate expires at the end of this month. Liling Tan, CCTV, New York.
Well, let's go live now to Juba, where our correspondent Robert Nagila is standing by. Let's try once more to chat to him there about the situation in South Sudan. Robert, I hope we don't lose you again on this line, but let's just pick up on the fact that it looks like we may be approaching a stalemate between the South Sudanese government and, of course, the African Union. We understand that you've spoken exclusively to President Salva Kiir. He's made it clear he doesn't want more troops in the country, but of course the AU wants to send in peacekeepers. Tell us what's likely to happen next.
Well, that's the big question here. But as far as South Sudan is concerned, that issue is not up for discussion. Now, when I spoke to President Salva Kiir this afternoon, he said that, look, you've got 12,000 United Nations part of the UNMISS mission in South Sudan, in the country at this particular moment. And he says that for any other requirement that foreign forces would be needed, they were sufficient for that, because the thinking within the government is that one of the reasons why we had this recent crisis where you had forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and those loyal to Dr. Riek Machar fighting was simply because you had two militaries, two armies under two different military structures, and they say that that was a problem. Now, if you add a third, or rather in this case a fourth military force, because they say that the UN has a military force in here already, then that simply compounds the problem, and that is not the solution. Now, President Salva Kiir told me that perhaps what neighboring countries, that is Kenya, Uganda, can do to assist in this particular situation is to try and track down Dr. Riek Machar and bring him back to the negotiating table so that this negotiated peace settlement can then move forward. However, he also told me that if Dr. Riek Machar does not turn up, then he cannot hold up this peace process forever. He says that it does appear that there are others within his coalition that would be willing to talk to the government. But he says that Dr. Riek Machar is the selected vice president representing that coalition, and he would rather sit and talk to him. However, that will not hold them back. But as far as the troops are concerned, he was very categorical. No foreign troops on southern Sudan soil. He said that he would not allow that. He says that there are UN peacekeepers here, 12,000 of them, and they can handle any situation required of any foreign troops.
And Robert, then outside of the corridors of power and members of government, how are people on the ground responding to the possibility of additional troops in South Sudan? I suppose one benefit is that unlike the country's troops, both UNMISS and the AU peacekeepers would be impartial and not particularly biased towards any one leader.
Well, you've got to understand that the information about the AU proposal began sipping in here late morning into the afternoon, so we'll probably have proper reactions tomorrow. However, as far as the government is concerned, that's an area that they're not willing to go into. As far as the people are concerned, really, most of the people that we've spoken to are just happy that peace has been restored in Juba. Of worry to the citizens around here, the residents of Juba, is the shortages they have been experiencing. There have been food shortages here, primarily as a result of the fact that you've got truck drivers who normally supply Juba from Uganda who've not been coming in, citing security concerns concerns along the highway between Uganda and Juba. However, the government here says that it has restored that situation. There's adequate security along that route now, and says that that situation should be alleviated any time now. The other concern here is the evacuations. We've seen a lot of citizens from regional countries, Kenya, Uganda, all leaving. We've also seen other citizens from international partners, India, the United States, evacuated as well. Now, this means that some of the businesses that were running have also been shut. Remember that some of them were working in various sectors of the economy as well. So that has had a huge effect on the economy here. And the government is hoping that sooner rather than later they will come back and things can return to normal.
And that is certainly everyone's hope. Thanks very much, Robert Nagila, live for us there in Juba.